Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, everyone, here we are after market close on Friday, September 3rd. Want to take our daily look at SoFi. I think I got the date right there. Yep. Before we get started, a couple of things that I want to mention. One, if you haven't seen my swing trade series yet, I have a playlist on my channel that documents all of my swing trade buys from day to day. Every day that I have a buy, I make a video on it, so why I take that buy or those buys. And then last night I actually put out a video that tracks my profit and loss in sheets from the beginning of those videos, which was just August 18th, but it gives you some idea of how those performed the last 2 weeks, and I'll be doing that at the end of every month for the time being, tracking the profit and loss. So feel free to have a look at those if those would be interesting to you to see which tickers I'm swing trading. And there was one other thing, but it's slipping my mind, so if I think of it later. Oh, there's I have a new Instagram. It's just at Walkabouts with Dan. The thing about that is I'm putting out a pre-market reel every day, so it's just me going over what tickers I'm looking for that could run throughout the day or could have really volatile days, based on the pre-market action and potentially some catalysts that are coming into play. So if those would be interesting for you to get every day before market open, I put them out between 9 and 9:10 in the morning Eastern time on trading days. Feel free to follow me there. All right, so SoFi had another solid day today. I mean, it was looking much better in the first half of the day, and then sort of batted itself around the rest of the day. But all in all, obviously a really good week for SoFi. Full disclosure, because I told you folks that I would keep you posted on these things, I added to my SoFi position today and was happy to do so. I added toward market close over here. I think it did a really good job today. If we look, it's very quickly regained over this 1502, and today may have been the test that we need. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we get an additional test coming up because we're still sitting very, very close to this 1502 support zone that we had charted. But this is obviously its best opportunity to flip this to support from resistance that we've seen in quite some time. And so we'll see what it does, early next week when trading opens back up again after the long weekend. But I would be fine with the buy that I took today if it comes down and tests this 1502. Now, if it flips the 1502 from support to resistance, then I'll sort of have to look and see how it's acting, what it's doing to sort of make a decision. It wouldn't be a clear cut kind of like, get out of there kind of situation, because obviously I took my last position was okay if it came down and tested that 1411. And so just a week or so ago, I was happy with 1411 being tested. Now I'm saying I'm happy with 1502 being tested. And to me, those are good sort of odds to continue playing. But I'll keep you posted as I add or reduce any of my positioning in SoFi in my longer term trades. So yeah, that's what the day looked like today. Now, if we pull back out to the daily, which is what we have been looking at more consistently, today, clocking in nearly 19 million in volume, which is excellent, higher than the 3-month average, and really in line with what I have been saying for weeks and weeks, that I would like to see that volume be in that range for the days that we get some green action. Now, we're continuing to bump ourselves out of this wedge that we have been talking about for several days, continuing to try to build support over that 1502, which is what we were just talking about. And to me, nothing to the downside has changed. If we happen to lose support at 1502, I would see support still sitting at 1411. We could get some, I guess, another chance at support right on here at 1460, because you see that's where this flipped from resistance to support, and also 1460 is about where these wicks topped out here and is very close in to where this resistance on this day occurred as well. So that could be a chance for like a slight, just sort of like a slight dippity dip. I don't really know what to call it. A slip dip. But if it really dips back down, then I'd be looking obviously for 14.11 to catch it again and go from there. Now, if we can continue with the bullish momentum, 16.29 is the next level up that I'm looking at. That obviously represents the resistance that we see here, the support that flipped to resistance that we see there, back here, the support here, support here, and resistance and support all through here as well, right? It's just, there's a ton of it. So we won't go through all of it. But that would then probably unlock the door. If it can actually make a run at 16.29, a strong run, that would very strongly open up the likelihood that it's going to come up and fill this gap. And you recall we had a gap discussion a few videos ago. I am still going to have the person who wrote that article on, or one of the gap articles that we talked about in the comments, coming in to do a video here in the next couple of weeks. There's some time zone challenges, but we'll get there. But this would obviously be a great possibility, right, for it to come up and fill this gap. And it has a lot to prove. It's just starting to dip its wick in there at the moment on the upside, but this would pull it up to near 17, right? About 1672, 1673 to fill this gap. Do I have that right? Yeah. And so that would be a really good, some really good sort of tailwinds for SoFi, and that could help us see if it's able to gain some strength and really sort of boost the price and draw in some additional institutions. There's been some large scale outflow lately we've been dealing with, right? So sort of the inverse of what we talked about maybe a week ago, which was the inflows that we were seeing were consistently higher than the outflows. The outflows at that point were relatively tiny, and then every time that we saw inflows, most of the time we saw inflows, they were large quantities. Now we're starting to see the opposite, where large scale outflows are dramatically outpacing the inflows. That said, it's happening on these days where there's still overall buying pressure coming in and driving the price up. So there's, potentially some profit being taken off the table there. Don't exactly know where those large scale orders are coming from at the moment, but we can look into that next week and the week ahead. But that's just to say, this is a really good sign. The trend to me is looking really solid, especially with this wedging out, especially with potentially getting support at 1502, and then the potential to get into this white box. Getting into this white box really gives us an opportunity to try to fill this gap, which would raise the price pretty significantly in the in the vast scheme of things. And I still feel like we're very much in the face of this big drop down, right? I think folks who've been in this for a while are still very much feeling the after effects of that. Now, volume, like we said, staying really strong here. MACD continuing to push up, continuing to increase the real estate between the MACD and the signal line. So these are all good bullish signs. And bullish Dan takes a lot of heat, because if the stock doesn't go parabolic and just go up in perpetuity, then bullish Dan gets a lot of heat for ever having said that there were bullish signs in the stock. But you know what? You're all adults. Hopefully, if you're trading, you should at least be of the age that your broker allowed or requires you to be. So you're adults. Make your own decision. Just because I'm bullish or bearish, you don't have to adopt that position at all. But I also notice a lot of the haters stay away when we get some green days in SoFi, and then they come flocking back in when we get the red days, and they're like, oh my God, you were bullish on this stock at one point. But it's just part of the nature of tracking a stock that I think has long-term potential, but tracking it day to day to day. Typically, if you're taking a long-term view on something, or at least for me, if I take a long-term view on something, it's very rare, or maybe never, that I actually go in and check it and dissect it, track it day to day to day to day in any meticulous way, shape, or form. But that's what we do here, because it's an interesting stock. I've talked about that before. It's not just because I'm like bullish on SoFi or that I think that the company is so great. I sort of adopted those views over time, but originally it was IPOE was in an interesting predicament with the price action, with the short interest, with the merger coming up, and all of these different factors. And I think SoFi still brings with it a bunch of that baggage and a bunch of those interesting dynamics that we're going to go over hopefully next week, hopefully late next week in the next Weird World series. But that's why I think it's interesting to track this one day to day, but it does leave the door open to just, sometimes in a short-term fashion, day over day, it looks bullish, sometimes it look bearish. And regardless on the macro view, if something moves up or down over time, there would have been periods where it was moving up, moving down, and then it just eventually sort of worked itself overall much higher, overall much lower. And that's just the nature of the stock market. So just keep that in mind, that it's the nature of doing a daily video on anything, that you're going to have, ins and outs, and now it's bullish and now it's bearish, and that's just the case sometimes. So that's just, I don't know, a little reality check. I watched this video. If you haven't watched it, it's on CNBC. It's only like 3 minutes, but they put SoFi on the screen, but they don't ever say anything about it. Wall Street Bets, maybe giving some attention back to SoFi again. We'll see. But that could certainly help if we get some increased pressure from retail, especially if large scale continues to pull some money out, which, we'll have to see if that continues to happen or not. On the data side of things, our friend Paul in the comments, I'm sure he may have some clarification here. He's questioned whether or not Swaggy's calculations are correct before, but Swaggy, I refreshed this just before doing the video, still coming in with 14.5 max pain for the day. Obviously, we're finishing, an additional strike higher than that, so that would have caught those calls in the money, but also the $15 calls would have been in the money at close. So, to me, it's if 14.5 is right, then it's a miss for market makers who are trying to pin it to max pain. But feel free to look in the comments for Paul, who might have some more insight on that. We'll continue to track that week over week just for the time being. And then on the short interest side of things, shorts continuing to pull out today. So this trend that we saw, they very briefly got themselves up over 10% and then relatively quickly retreated, and utilization quite low at this point. And so, like I've been saying, and I'll just repeat it because I notice with some of the questions that I get in the comments, it's clear that folks don't watch videos every day, and I don't blame anyone for that. But sometimes we certainly cover something in a video that then somebody asks a question about a couple of days later or points out, and that's totally fine. I'm not trying to skewer anyone, but I'm just saying if I repeat things day to day, it's just because there's a lot of folks who don't necessarily watch the videos every single day. But as it pertains to short interest, what I have been saying is I'm more than happy to just have them stay out of it. I don't have any super strong desire to try to bring in a bunch of shorts and put a lot of pressure on the stock and then try to squeeze those shorts. And that's, to me, it's a fool's errand at this point. The stock's been under enough pressure as it is, with the lockups and with institutions taking forever to buy in, and just all the FUD around SPACs and things like that. So to me, that's enough selling pressure from those things, and we don't need shorts on top of it, even if down the line we could squeeze them out. The pain that would be endured to be able to put in place a short squeeze, A, it's very hard to do, and B, I don't have any desire to go through that additional pain just to try to get some squeeze happening in a stock that I think, if they start to make the right decisions and execute on a vision, could just get there on its own laurels, in the near future. Anyway, so I think that's it. I'm very tired today. It's been a very long week, but I'm looking forward to putting out some data videos next week, doing some deeper dives into things we haven't looked at in a while, like institutions, FTDs, and then the Weird World slideshow. Obviously, that's going to be focused a lot. Well, I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to give anything away. We'll get there when we get there, but I'm hoping that it's interesting. I'm interested in what's going in there, so I'm hoping it's going to be interesting to folks as well. Okay, so how did we do for the week? Let's just pull up the weekly, and then we'll get out of here. So if I hover over this weekly candlestick, this says we're up 7.98% this week. me not wanting to do math or fight Webull and figure out if it's right or wrong, I'll say, okay, Webull says that we're plus 7.98% on the week. That's phenomenal in the vast scheme of things. We're plus 8.23% the week of August 6th. So maybe it's something about the first week of the month. No, it's not actually, because this was minus 2.27. But let's hope that we can put in a really good second week of the month. I don't think we've had one of those in a long time. This was the second week of July. Let's see. This was the second week of August. Okay, so that was minus over 10%. Second week of July was minus 9%. Okay, so we need to try. We hope next week that we break this really bad trend of second week red sell-offs. Again, second week of July. So this is telling me on Webull, minus 9.02%. Second week of August. Is that right? The second week of, yeah, it was just very late. August 13th, minus 10.29. Okay, so next week we'll end on 9/10. Let's hope that we can put in another green week, but worst case scenario that we don't have a minus 9 or minus 10% week. But this is, I promise, I didn't mean to end the video with a scare tactic, but I didn't know that that's what that was going to say. I just wanted to see how good our week was this week. All right. Speaking of good weeks, I'm going to go enjoy the weekend. I hope you all had a great week, and I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.